I'm Smith, 59, male. I am a retired structural engineer living in the house I designed and built myself in the quiet suburbs of Seattle. My life was engineered for peace and stability until my son and his wife moved in, bringing chaos into my carefully calculated world. The situation in my home has always been my fortress. I spent 40 years calculating loads, stresses, and fracture points in steel and concrete. I thought I understood how things break, but nothing prepared me for the structural failure of my own family. When my son Jason asked to move back in with his wife Carla to save money, I agreed. I wanted to help. But when a storm knocked out my security system, I let them believe it stayed broken. It was a small omission, a momentary lapse in communication. I didn't think it mattered. Then I fixed it. And I forgot to tell them. What I saw on that screen didn't just break my heart. It demolished the very foundation of trust I thought I had built with my only child. Audience engagement hook. Before I open the door to this painful chapter of my life, I want to ask you something. We all value our privacy, but where do you draw the line in your own home? If you suspected something was wrong under your roof, would you watch? Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. It helps me feel less like I'm shouting into the void. Retirement, for a man like me, was never about inactivity. It was about recalibration. I spent 4 decades as a structural engineer, ensuring that skyscrapers didn't sway too much in the wind, and that bridges didn't buckle under the weight of morning traffic. My life was governed by physics, by math, by the absolute certainty that if you calculated the load correctly, the structure would hold. My wife, Ellen, passed away 5 years ago. That was a load I hadn't calculated for. Her death was a sheer force that nearly tore me apart. But, like a damaged building, I reinforced the weak points. I retrofitted my life. I established routines. I woke up at 6:00 a.m. I drank black coffee. I read the trade journals. I maintained the house, a sprawling mid-century modern design I had drafted on a napkin in 1985 and spent 10 years perfecting. It was a smart house before smart houses were cool, wired with a localized server, climate control, and a security system that reveled Fort Knox. I was content in my solitude. The silence was structural. It held me up. Then came the phone call that introduced the trimmers. It was Jason, my son. He was 28 years old, a man now. Though I often struggled to see him as one, he had my chin but his mother's eyes, and unfortunately he seemed to lack the pragmatism that had kept me employed and solvent for 40 years. Jason was a dreamer, a word I used in mixed company. In my head I used words like drifter or hone-focused. He worked in sales or marketing or brand management. The titles changed every 6 months, usually accompanied by a lateral move to a new startup that promised to disrupt an industry I'd never heard of. Dad, he had said, his voice carrying that specific pitch he used when he needed something. It was a tone I hadn't heard since his college tuition days. We're in a bit of a tight spot. We meant Jason and Carla. Carla was the variable in the equation that I actually liked. She was 26, a nurse, grounded, hardworking, and possessed a warmth that reminded me of Ellen. She was too good for Jason, a fact I never voiced but often thought. What kind of tight spot? I asked, sitting in my Ames chair, looking out at the rain sliding down the floor to ceiling glass of my living room. Our lease is up, Jason said, rushing the words, and the landlord is jacking up the rent by 40%. It's criminal, Dad. We're trying to save for a down payment, but we're bleeding cash. We just need a runway, 6 months, maybe a year, just to get our feet under us. I hesitated. My house was large enough, 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, a finished basement. Space wasn't the issue. The issue was the disruption of my equilibrium. But what is a father supposed to do? You build the foundation so the next generation can build the house. If their house is falling down, you open your doors.
6 months, I said.
Strictly.
You're a lifesaver, Dad, seriously. We'll be ghost. You won't even know we're there. That was the first lie. Move-in day was a catastrophe of cardboard and mismanagement. Jason arrived with a rented truck that was too small, necessitating 3 trips across the city. He was sweating, snapping at Carla, and complaining about the humidity. Pivot, Jason, pivot! Carla laughed, trying to maneuver a hideous purple sofa through the entryway. She caught my eye and winked. Sorry about the monstrosity. Smith. I tried to sell it, but he loves it. It's distinct, I offered, holding the door. Carla wiped her forehead with the back of her hand. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes that her smile couldn't quite hide. Thanks for letting us crash, Smith. I know you like your space. I promise I'll make it up to you. I'm a mean cook. I look forward to it, I said, and I meant it. By evening, my pristine living room was a maze of boxes labeled MIS key in Jason's erratic handwriting. The silence of the house was gone, replaced by the thud of heavy footsteps and the jarring sound of Jason's Bluetooth speaker blasting bass, heavy music. I retreated to my study, a sanctuary of oak and leather, and closed the door. I watched the security monitors on my desk. I had 6 cameras covering the exterior and the main interior common areas, the living room, the kitchen, the hallway leading to the bedrooms. I didn't have them in the bedrooms or bathrooms, obviously. I wasn't a creep. I was just a man who liked to know who was at the door before I opened it. On the screen, I saw Jason dumping a box of cables onto the kitchen island. My kitchen island, made of imported Italian marble that explicitly forbade scratching. He tossed his keys on the counter. I sighed, rubbing my temples. 6 months. The first 2 weeks were an exercise in patience. Jason was messy. He left milk cartons on the counter. He left lights on in rooms he wasn't in. He parked his car crookedly in the driveway, blocking my access to the garage. Carla, on the other hand, was a ghost in the best way. She worked long shifts at the hospital, leaving before I woke up and often returning after I'd eaten dinner. When she was home, she was cleaning up Jason's messes or cooking lasagna that smelled like heaven. You don't have to clean up after him. I told her one Tuesday night. I had walked into the kitchen to find her scrubbing a scorched pan Jason had left in the sink. She looked up, startled. "Oh, hey, Smith. It's fine. He's stressed with work. The new job is demanding. He's always stressed," I grumbled, pouring a glass of water. "Does he still have that job at the logistics firm?" Carla hesitated, her scrubbing slowing down. No. He left that one last month. He's doing freelance consulting now. It's more flexible." Freelance consulting, I repeated. In my experience, that was code for unemployed and scrolling Twitter. "He's talented," Carla said defensively, though her voice lacked conviction. "He just needs the right opportunity." I didn't press it. It wasn't my marriage. It was just my house. Then came the storm. It was a classic Pacific Northwest gale, the kind that knocks branches off trees and turns the sky a bruised purple. The lights flickered and died around 900 p.m. We sat in the living room by candlelight, Carla, Jason, and I. "Power should be back in a few hours," I said, checking the utility app on my phone. "This is kinda cozy," Carla said, sipping wine. "It's annoying," Jason muttered, scrolling on his phone, the blue light illuminating his frown. "I can't get a signal, Dad. Is the Wi-Fi on a backup battery?" "The network has a UPS," I said, "but the connection to the ISP is down at the street level." A massive crack of thunder shook the house, followed immediately by a sizzling pop from the utility closet in the hallway. "What was that?" Jason jumped up. "Surge?" I said, already moving. "I have suppressors, but that sounded close." I checked the panel with a flashlight. The smell of ozone was sharp, the main breaker for the security system, and the smart home hub had tripped, but worse, the dedicated DVR unit for the cameras was smoking slightly.
"Freed, I assessed."
"The cameras!" Jason asked from behind me. He sounded oddly breathless. "The recording unit," I said, "and probably the camera feeds."
The system is dead.
Dead, Jason repeated. Like totally off. "Yes, Jason, dead."
"Why, nothing,"
he said quickly. "Just security, you know. With all our stuff here." "I have deadbolts," I said dryly. "We'll survive." The power came back the next morning, but the security system remained dark. The little red LEDs on the cameras in the corners of the ceiling were unlit. "Hey, Dad," Jason asked over breakfast, buttering toast with aggressive strokes. "When are you getting the guy out to fix the cameras?" "I'll call them next week." I lied. I hadn't planned to lie. It just came out. I was enjoying the morning coffee, and I didn't want to deal with scheduling a technician. "Next week." Jason frowned. "Is it safe to wait that long?" "We'll live in a gated cul-de-sac, Jason. The most dangerous thing that happens here is Mrs. Gable's poodle getting loosed." "Relax." He relaxed, visibly. His shoulders dropped 3 inches. He took a bite of toast and actually smiled at Carla. "Cool. Okay? No rush." That reaction stuck with me. It was a data point, an anomaly. Why would my son be relieved that my security system was broken? At the time, I rationalized it. Maybe he felt watched. Maybe he wanted to walk around in his underwear without worrying about his dad reviewing the footage. It was a reasonable desire for privacy, so I let it be. For 3 days, the house was unwatched. But I am an engineer. I fix things. I couldn't stand the idea of a broken system in my house. It was an itch in my brain. On Thursday, while Jason was out consulting and Carla was at the hospital, I went to the utility closet. I pulled the DVR unit. I opened the casing. It wasn't the motherboard. It was just a blown fuse and a fried power supply unit. I had spares in my workshop. It took me 20 minutes. I soldered a new connection, replaced the fuse, and rebooted the system. The drive hummed to life. The fans whirred. I went to my study and checked the monitor. The grid appeared. Living room clear. Kitchen clear. Hallway clear. The red recording lights on the actual cameras were disabled in the software settings. A trick I used so visitors wouldn't feel self-conscious. The cameras were recording, but they looked dead. I stood up to go tell Jason, "Hey, system's back up." Then the phone rang. It was my doctor returning a call about my blood pressure prescription. By the time I hung up, 20 minutes had passed. Then I got hungry. Then I decided to prune the roses. By the time Jason came home that evening, I had forgotten to mention it. He walked in, tossed his jacket on the sofa, and glanced up at the camera in the corner of the living room. It was dark, no red light. He let out a long exhale, pulled his phone out, and typed a message. He looked confident. Arrogant, even. I was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables. "Good day," I asked. He jumped. "Jesus, Dad, I didn't hear you. I live here." I reminded him. Yeah, good day. Great meetings. Big things coming. "That's good," I said. Carla called. "She's pulling a double shift. Won't be home until tomorrow morning." Jason's face did something complicated. It wasn't disappointment. It was a suppression of a smile. "Oh, that sucks. Poor girl works too hard." "She does," I said, chopping a carrot with a little more force than necessary. "Well," Jason said, grabbing an apple, "I'm going to hit the shower. Probably turning early. I'm beat. Okay." He walked down the hall. I watched him go. Then, out of habit, I glanced at the iPad mounted on the fridge that mirrored my security feed. I saw Jason in the hallway on the screen. He stopped outside his bedroom door. He looked up at the hallway camera. He stared right into the lens, verifying it was dead. Then he smirked. It was a look I hadn't seen since he was 16 and had successfully snuck a six-pack of beer into the basement. It was the look of someone who thinks they have outsmarted the authority figure. I frowned. The engineer in me sensed a stress fracture. I didn't tell him the cameras were working. Not then. I told myself I would tell him in the morning. I was wrong. The psychology of a secret is fascinating. Once you hold one, it changes how you observe the world. Knowing that the cameras were rolling while Jason believed them to be dormant transformed me from a father into an observer. I wasn't spying. At least, that's what I told myself initially. I was simply validating the system. Friday morning, the house was quiet. Carla was still at the hospital. I sat in my study with my coffee, reviewing the footage from the previous night. I scrubbed through the timeline. 10:00 p.m. Jason comes out of the bedroom. He's wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt. He goes to the kitchen. He opens the fridge. He drinks milk directly from the carton. I grimaced. Animal. 10:15 p.m. He paces the living room. He's on the phone. The audio pickup on these cameras is decent, but he's mumbling. I turned up the volume on my computer speakers. Yeah. No, he's clueless. Jason's voice tinny but audible. The whole system is fried. Lightning strike.
Yeah, literally.
It's perfect. I froze. My coffee cup hovered halfway to my mouth. He's talking about me. Clueless. No, she's at the hospital. Jason continued, pacing in a circle. She's doing a double. I have the place to myself. The old man sleeps like the dead. I felt a cold prickle on the back of my neck. The old man. I was 59, and I ran 5Ks. Thank you very much. But the insult wasn't what bothered me. It was the conspiracy in his tone. Who was he talking to? "Come over," Jason said. "Yeah, just park down the street. Walk up. He won't see you." I'll leave the side door unlocked. I leaned closer to the screen. The timestamp on this recording was from last night, Thursday. I watched the rest of the footage. 10:45 p.m. Jason opens the side door in the kitchen. 10:47 p.m. A figure enters. I held my breath. It was a man. A guy in a hoodie. He pulled the hood down. It was Dave? I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Dave was Jason's old college buddy. A loudmouth, a bit of a slob, but harmless. I watched them. They sat on the couch. Jason pulled a bottle of whiskey from his bag, my whiskey, a limited edition Japanese single malt I had been saving. They drank. They played video games. They laughed. 12:30 a.m. Dave leaves. I sat back in my chair. Relief washed over me, followed immediately by irritation. So this was the big secret. He wanted to drink my expensive scotch and play FIFA with his buddy without me lecturing him. He thought I was a tyrant who wouldn't let him have a friend over. I felt foolish. I was turning into a paranoid old man. He was 28. If he wanted to have a buddy over, he should just ask. The deception was immature, but it wasn't malicious. I decided to let it go. I wouldn't confront him about the whiskey. I'd just hide the bottle better next time. But I still didn't tell him the cameras were fixed. Why? Maybe because he called me, clueless. Maybe because I wanted to see if he'd steal anything else. Or maybe subconsciously I knew that Dave wasn't the only secret Jason was keeping. Saturday rolled around. Carla was home, sleeping off her exhaustion. The house had a lazy weekend rhythm. I was in the garage tinkering with my vintage motorcycle. Jason came in around noon. He looked fresh, showered, smelling of expensive cologne. Going out, I asked, wiping grease from my hands. Yeah, he said, checking his reflection in the side mirror of the bike. Networking lunch. Meeting a potential investor for that app idea I told you about. On a Saturday. Hustle never sleeps, Dad, he said with a grin. You know how it is. I do, I said. Just don't hustle us out of a place to live. He laughed, but it was a hollow sound. Don't worry, I'm going to take care of everything. I'm going to buy you a new boat when this hits. I don't want a boat. I want you to pay your debts. Details, he waved a hand. Hey, did you call the security company yet? The what? The cameras. Did you schedule the fix? I looked at him. He was wearing a sharp blazer and jeans. He looked successful. He looked like a liar. Not yet, I said. They're booked out until next month. Supply chain issues with the parts. Next month. Jason's eyes lit up. He tried to hide it, but the relief was instantaneous. Wow, that's crazy. Well, I guess we just have to be extra careful locking the doors. Indeed, I said. He left, whistling. I went inside and found Carlo in the kitchen. She was making a sandwich. She looked better after some sleep, but there was a sadness in her posture. He's gone again, she asked, not looking at me. Networking, I said. Right, she sighed. He's always networking. But the bank account never seems to notice. She sat down at the island, picking at the crust of the bread. Smith, can I ask you something? Anything. Was he like this before? When he was a kid, was he always looking for the shortcut? I sat opposite her. This was dangerous territory. A father defending his son vis an honest man validating a wife's concerns. He was imaginative. I chose my words carefully. He always wanted the result without the process. When he built Lego sets, he'd skip the instructions and then get mad when the castle collapsed. Carla laughed, a dry, humorless sound. That sounds about right. Our life feels a bit like a collapsing castle right now. He loves you, Carla, I said. I wanted it to be true. She looked at me, her brown eyes searching mine. I know. I love him too. I feel like there's a wall. He's here physically, but his mind is somewhere else. And he's so guarded with his phone. He takes it into the shower. Who does that? I felt a pang of sympathy. Privacy is a funny thing. It's not privacy, she whispered. It's secrecy. There's a difference. That struck me. It's secrecy? I'm sure it's just work stress. I lied. I was doing a lot of lying lately. He wants to impress you. He wants to be the provider. I don't need a provider, she said firmly. I'm a nurse. I make good money. I need a partner. She finished her sandwich and stood up. I'm going to go for a run.
Clear my head, be safe, I said, always.
After she left, I went back to my study. I looked at the monitors. The house was empty. I brought up the system logs. I set up a specific alert. Motion detection, living room, kitchen, hallway. Hours 800 p.m. to 600 a.m. I sensed the alert to my phone. If Jason was bringing Dave over again to drink my scotch, I wanted to know. But deep down, the engineer in me knew that the load calculations were wrong. The stress on the marriage was too high. The deflection was too calculated. Jason wasn't hiding a drinking buddy. He was hiding a catastrophic failure. Sunday passed without incident. Monday came. I have to go to Portland for a few days, Jason announced at dinner on Monday night. Conference. Potential clients. Carla looked up from her plate. Portland. You didn't mention Portland. Just came up today. Jason said, shoveling lasagna into his mouth. Last minute. But it's a huge opportunity. Where are you staying? She asked. Just a Motel 6 or something. Keep costs down. I can check if I have points at the Marriott. Carla offered. No, Jason said too loudly. I mean, don't worry about it. I already booked a cheap Airbnb. It's done. Carla put her fork down. The silence at the table was heavy. Okay, she said softly. When do you leave? I asked. Tomorrow morning. Early! And when are you back? Thursday night! I watched him. He was avoiding eye contact. He was cutting his lasagna into tiny, pulverized pieces. Tuesday morning, Jason left with a duffel bag. Carla left for her shift. The house was mine again. Wednesday night, I was reading in bed. It was 11:15 p.m. Carla was working the night shift again. The house was supposed to be empty. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. Alert motion detected, side entry door. I frowned. It was probably a raccoon triggering the exterior sensor, but the alert said entry. I picked up the phone and opened the app. The feed from the kitchen camera loaded. The side door opened. Jason walked in. He wasn't in Portland. He was in my kitchen. And he wasn't alone. I sat up in bed, the duvet falling to my waist, my eyes locked on the small screen of my phone. The glow of the display was the only light in the room. My heart began to hammer a frantic rhythm against my ribs. Not out of fear for my safety, but out of a profound, sinking dread. Jason was supposed to be 170 miles south in Portland. Instead, he was standing in my kitchen, wearing the same clothes he had left in yesterday morning. He turned and held the door open. A woman walked in. She wasn't Carla. She was younger, perhaps 24 or 25. She had long dark hair that fell in loose waves over a leather jacket. She wore tight jeans and boots. She looked around the kitchen with an air of curiosity, not caution. She looked like she belonged in a trendy downtown bar, not in the suburban kitchen of a retired engineer. "Are you sure he's asleep?" the woman asked. Her voice was clear on the audio feed. "Yeah, Maya, relax," Jason said. He closed the door and locked it, the deadbolt sliding home with a thunk that echoed through the phone speaker. "He takes sleeping pills. Once he's out, a bomb could go off and he wouldn't wake up." I felt a flush of heat rise up my neck. I did not take sleeping pills. I took a magnesium supplement. The indignity of the lie was dwarfed by the enormity of the betrayal, but it still stung. "And the cameras?" Maya asked, pointing a manicured finger at the lens mounted above the refrigerator, the very lens I was watching them through. "Dead," Jason scoffed. "Lightning strike. The whole system is fried. He's too cheap to get it fixed immediately. We're ghosts." "You're bad," she giggled. It was a sound that made my stomach churn. "I'm resourceful," he corrected. He moved toward her, wrapping his arms around her waist. He kissed her. I looked away. I physically turned my head away from the phone, staring into the dark corner of my bedroom. I felt like a voyeur in my own tragedy. This was my son, my flesh and blood, cheating on his wife, a woman who was currently scrubbing bedpans or administering IVs to pay for his food, under my roof. I forced myself to look back at the screen. I needed the data. I needed to know the extent of the damage. They were moving out of the kitchen now, heading toward the living room. I switched camera feeds. The living room camera, mounted high on the bookshelf, gave a wide view of the space. "Nice place," Maya said, running her hand along the back of the sofa, the purple one Carla had brought. "Your dad has money." "He did all right," Jason said dismissively. "He's sitting on a gold mine with this property. I keep telling him to sell, downsize to a condo, give us our share now so we can invest it. But he's stubborn. Give us our share." The entitlement in his voice was so casual, so assumed. He wasn't just betraying his wife, he was actively waiting for me to get out of the way so he could liquidate my life's work. "Where's the wife?" Maya asked, dropping onto the sofa. She kicked her boots off. They landed on the Persian rug Ellen had bought in Istanbul. "Working?" Jason said. He went to the liquor cabinet. He pulled out the Japanese whiskey. My whiskey. "She's a workaholic."
It's sad, really. We've just grown apart. She doesn't get me. Not like you do.
It was the cliché of clichés. The script of every adulterer in history. My wife doesn't understand me. "I feel bad," Maya said, accepting the glass he poured. She didn't sound bad. She sounded bored. "Is she coming back?" "Not until 1800 a.m. We have the whole night." Jason sat next to her. He put his feet up on the coffee table. No coasters. I sat in my bed, paralyzed. The engineer in me was rapidly calculating scenarios. Option A. I go downstairs right now. I carry my baseball bat. I confront them. I scream. I throw them out. Outcome: explosive conflict. Jason denies, then blames. He leaves with Maya. Carla comes home to a shattered life without seeing the evidence. Jason spins a narrative that I'm crazy or that I misunderstood. Option B. I stay here. I record everything. I gather irrefutable proof. I protect Carla. I ensure that when the demolition happens, it's controlled. I looked at the record button on the app interface. It was already red. The system was doing its job. I watched for another 10 minutes. They talked. Mostly Jason bragging about deals that didn't exist and money he didn't have. Maya listened, occasionally checking her phone. It wasn't a romance for the ages. It was two narcissists feeding off each other's vanity. Then things started to get physical. I closed the app. I lay back on my pillow, staring at the ceiling. The silence of the house was now oppressive. Below me, in the living room I had built, my son was destroying his marriage. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. I listened. I heard the muffled sounds of the television. I heard laughter. Later, I heard them move down the hallway to the guest bedroom, the one next to Jason and Carla's room. The audacity was breathtaking. He wasn't even using his own bed. He was defiling the guest room. At 400 a.m., I heard the side door open and close. Maya was leaving. I checked the app. I saw her walking down the driveway to a car parked 3 houses down. Jason locked the door, drank a glass of water in the kitchen, and then went into his and Carla's bedroom. The house fell silent again. I got up. I showered. I dressed in my usual flannel shirt and jeans. I went downstairs. The living room smelled of her perfume, something floral and cheap, and my whiskey. The glass was on the coffee table, a ring of condensation staining the wood. I picked up the glass. I took it to the kitchen and washed it. I dried the table. I erased the physical evidence. Why? Because I wasn't ready to blow the charge yet. I needed to understand the full scope. Was this a one-time thing, or was Maya a regular fixture? And more importantly, I needed to figure out how to tell Carla without destroying her. Jason emerged at 7:00 a.m. He looked tired but smug. "Morning, Dad," he said, reaching for the coffee pot. "Back from Portland early." I asked. I didn't look up from my newspaper. He froze. Just for a microsecond. Yeah. Meetings wrapped up late last night. I drove back, got in around 3. Didn't want to wake you. Consider it, I said. Yeah. The deal went great, by the way. Looks like we're moving forward. That's fantastic, Jason. So, he said, leaning against the counter, swirling his coffee. Any word on the security guy? When's he coming? He was testing me, checking if the coast was still clear. I looked at him. I looked into the eyes of the boy I had taught to ride a bike, the boy I had held when he scraped his knee, the boy I had paid tuition for. I saw a stranger. I called them yesterday. I said calmly, "They're still waiting on parts. Maybe another 2 weeks." Jason smiled. A genuine, relieved smile. Bummer. Well, gotta roll with the punches, right? Right, I said. We have to roll with the punches. I waited for him to leave the room. Then I opened my laptop. I downloaded the footage from the night before. I created a folder on my encrypted drive. I named it Project Demolition. Carla came home an hour later. She looked like a zombie. She slumped onto a kitchen stool. "Hey, Smith," she whispered. "Rough night. Trauma center was a war zone," she said. "I just want to sleep for a week." She looked at the coffee pot.
Is Jason up? He's in the shower, I said.
He got back from Portland last night.
Yeah.
He did. She perked up slightly. "I thought he was staying until Thursday." "He said he missed you." I lied. Again. "He drove through the night." "That's sweet." She smiled, a tired, hopeful smile. Maybe things are turning around. My heart broke. It actually cracked. I looked at this woman who was working herself into an early grave for a man who referred to her as a workaholic to his mistress. "Carla," I said. "Yeah, I wanted to tell her." The words were in my throat. He's lying. He's cheating. I have it on video. But I looked at her exhaustion. If I told her now, she would crumble. She needed sleep. She needed strength. And I needed a lawyer. "Make sure you get some rest," I said instead. "I'm making a roast for dinner. We'll eat as a family." "Sounds perfect," she said. She went to the bedroom where her husband was washing off the scent of another woman. I sat alone in the kitchen. The red light of the camera above the fridge wasn't glowing, but I knew it was watching me. I picked up my phone and dialed a number I hadn't called in years. "Robert," I said when the voice answered. "It's Smith. I need you to come over. Bring your legal pad. And maybe a bottle of bourbon. We have a situation." Robert arrived at 11:00 a.m. on Wednesday, carrying a battered leather briefcase and a look of concern that deepened the wrinkles around his eyes. We had known each other since our undergraduate days at the University of Washington. He was the only person I trusted to inspect the structural integrity of my personal life. "Smith," he said, shaking my hand at the door. "You sounded like you were reporting a structural collapse on the phone." "I think the foundation has failed, Bob," I said, stepping aside to let him in. "Come to the study." I didn't offer him coffee. I went straight to the liquor cabinet and poured 2 fingers of bourbon for both of us. It was early, but the footage I was about to show him required anesthesia. We sat in the study. I locked the door. I turned the monitors around so he could see the screen. "This is from last night," I said, my voice flat. I pressed play. Robert watched in silence. He was a lawyer who specialized in estate planning and family law. He had seen the worst of human nature professionally for 40 years. He watched Jason enter the kitchen. He watched Maya enter. He listened to the audio, the insults about me, the callous dismissal of Carla. When the video ended, Robert took a slow sip of his bourbon. He didn't look shocked. He looked wary. "That's Maya," he said quietly. I stared at him. "You know her?" "Not personally," Robert sighed, setting his glass down. "But I know of her. She's the daughter of a client of mine, a developer. She has a reputation, Smith. She runs in circles looking for opportunities." "My son is broke," I said. "Has not an opportunity." "No." Robert pointed at the paused screen where Jason was gesturing around my living room. "But you aren't. And Jason is doing a very good job of selling your assets as his future inheritance." I felt a cold knot tighten in my stomach. "He's waiting for me to die." "He's counting on it," Robert corrected. "And based on that conversation about your gold mine property, he's probably already leveraged the idea of it." Robert leaned forward, his lawyer mode engaging. "Smith, we need to protect you. First, we need to ensure your estate is locked down. If something happens to you, we don't want Jason having unilateral control, especially if he's susceptible to influence from someone like her. I don't care about the money right now."
Bob, I snapped.
I care about Carla. She's in the other room sleeping off a 12-hour shift while her husband brings that woman into her home.
I know, Robert said softly. I like Carla.
She's a good kid. I need to tell her. You do. Robert agreed. But not yet. Why not? Because right now, this is just a painful video, Robert said, gesturing to the screen. If you show her this today, Jason will spin it. He'll say it was a one-time mistake. He'll cry. He'll beg. He'll blame the stress of unemployment. Carla loves him. She's vulnerable. She might take him back. And then he'll just get better at hiding it. So what do? You wait, Robert said ruthlessly. You gather more data. You find out if money is moving. Infidelity usually walks hand in hand with financial malfeasance. If he's spending money on Maya, he's taking it from somewhere. You build a case so undeniable that when you drop the hammer, there's nothing left of his defense. I hated it. Felt cold. It felt calculated. But it was the engineer's way. You don't patch a crack until you find the source of the stress. Okay, I said. We wait. The waiting was agony. Thursday passed. Jason was on his best behavior, which meant he actually put his dish in the dishwasher. He spent the evening on the couch with Carla. Watching a movie, I watched them from the kitchen. He held her hand. He kissed her forehead. It was a performance worthy of an Academy Award. Then came Friday. Boys' night, Jason announced at breakfast. Dave is coming over again. We're going to grind on some project planning. Dave? I asked, raising an eyebrow. Yeah. Just going to hang in the basement. Brainstorm? Carla, I asked. Night shift, she said, looking apologetic. Sorry, Smith. I'll make sure the kitchen is clean before I go. Don't worry about it, I said. Carla left at 6:30 p.m. At 7:00 p.m., Jason went into the basement. At 7:15 p.m., the side door opened. It wasn't Dave. It was Maya again. I was in my study, the lights off, watching the feed. The audacity was escalating. She didn't even wear a hood this time. She walked in like she owned the place. She was carrying a bag of takeout food. They went straight to the basement. My basement is finished. A large recreation room with a pool table, a bar, and a home cinema setup I rarely used. It was soundproofed thanks to the insulation I had installed years ago. I sat in my study, my finger hovering over the mouse. I could go down there. I could catch them in the act. But Robert's voice was in my head. Financial malfeasance. I needed to know what they were planning. I switched the audio feed to the basement camera. They were eating the takeout on the pool table. So? Maya said, chewing on a dumpling. Did you ask him? Not yet. Jason said. He was pacing, a pool cue in his hand. He's been moody. Old people get weird about their stuff. Jason, she whined. You promised. The condo in Belltown is perfect. If we don't put a deposit down by Monday, we lose it. I know. Jason snapped. I just need to get him to sign the guarantor form. I'll tell him it's for a business loan. He won't read the fine print. He trusts me. I froze. A guarantor form. He was trying to get me to co-sign a lease. Or worse, a mortgage for a love nest. And he was banking on my trust to do it. He better, Maya said, hopping up onto the table. Because I'm tired of sneaking around this museum. It smells like old man. It smells like equity. Jason laughed. Just give me a few days. Our anniversary is coming up on Tuesday. I'll play the dutiful son and husband. Everyone will be in a good mood. I'll slide the papers in front of him then. And what about her? Maya asked. Carla. She's clueless. She thinks we're saving for a house in the burbs. She has no idea I drained the joint savings account to pay for your car. My breath caught in my throat. He drained the joint savings account. That was the smoking gun. That was the structural failure. I zoomed in on the video. Jason was smiling, that arrogant, charming smile that had gotten him out of trouble his whole life. He had stolen his wife's savings, money she had earned standing on her feet for 12 hours a day, to buy a car for his mistress. I felt a rage so pure, so white-hot that my hands shook. I turned off the monitor. I couldn't watch any more. I had what I needed. I sat in the dark for a long time. I thought about Ellen. I thought about how much she had loved Jason, how she had always made excuses for him. He's just finding his way, Smith. Be patient. I wondered if she was watching this from somewhere. I wondered if she was finally out of patience too. I heard footsteps on the stairs around midnight. Maya was leaving. I waited until I heard the side door click shut. I walked out of my study and into the hallway. Jason was coming up the basement stairs, humming to himself. He stopped when he saw me. Whoa, Dad, he said, clutching his chest. You're up late. You look like a ghost standing there. Just checking the locks, I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears, hollow metallic. All locked up tight, Jason said, flashing a thumbs up. Dave just left. Dave, I repeated. Yeah. Good session. We're making progress. I'm sure you are, I said. I looked him in the eye. You know, Jason, lies are like rust. You can paint over them, but eventually they eat through the steel. Jason's smile faltered. He looked confused, then dismissive. Okay, poetic. You need some sleep, Dad. You're getting weird. Maybe, I said. Good night, Jason. Night. He walked past me to his bedroom, to the bed he shared with the woman he was robbing. I went back to my study. I didn't sleep that night either. I spent the night on my computer running a credit check on myself, locking down my accounts, and drafting an email to Robert. The subject line was, "It's worse than we thought. Proceed with the eviction papers." But before the eviction, there had to be the revelation. Jason had mentioned the anniversary. Tuesday. I'll slide the papers in front of him then. No, Jason, you won't. Tuesday was going to be a very different kind of day. Saturday morning dawned gray and drizzly, the kind of Seattle weather that seeps into your bones. The house felt heavy, charged with the static electricity of unsaid things. Carla was in the kitchen when I came down. She was staring at her laptop, a frown creasing her forehead. She had a calculator out and a stack of receipts. Everything okay? I asked, pouring my coffee. I made sure to keep my back to her so she wouldn't see the anger in my eyes, anger not at her but for her. I don't know, she murmured. Smith, do you know anything about banking errors? Sometimes, I said, turning around. What's the problem? I checked our savings account, she said, her voice trembling slightly. The house fund. We had nearly $15,000 in there. I put in a huge chunk of my overtime pay last month. And it's showing a balance of $300. She looked up at me, her eyes wide with panic. I called the bank, but they said the transfers were authorized online. I don't understand. I gripped my coffee mug. This was it. The moment truth collided with denial. Have you asked Jason? I asked gently. I texted him, she said. He's at the gym, he said. She checked her phone. He said he moved it to a high-yield investment account he found. He said he wanted to surprise me with the interest rates. I nearly crushed the mug in my hand high. Yield investment. That was code for Maya's car payments and a deposit on a love nest. Does that sound like him? I asked. Carla hesitated, is always looking for angles, but to move it all without asking me. That's scary. Carla, I said, sitting down across from her, you need to see the statement for this new account. Today, do not accept a screenshot. Ask him to log in and show you. She nodded slowly. You're right. I'm being paranoid. He's trying to help us grow our money. Just verify, I said. Trust, but verify. It's an engineering principle. Yeah. She managed a weak smile. Trust but verified. Jason came home an hour later looking pumped, smelling of sweat and that aggressive body spray he used. Hey, he boomed. Breakfast smells great. Carla stood up. Jason, we need to talk about the savings account. I stayed in the room. I busied myself with the toaster, but I was listening. Babe, I told you, Jason said, his voice dropping to a soothing, patronizing octave. I moved it to a Vanguard Protect fund. It's earning 4.5%. The old account was getting peanuts. I'm doing this for us. Can I see it? Carla asked. Can you log in? I would, Jason said, patting his pockets. But the app takes like 2 days to verify the identity documents. It's locked out until Monday or Tuesday. Security protocols, you know. It's super secure. It was a lie so blatant, so lazy that I almost laughed. Tuesday, Carla asked. Yeah, just in time for our anniversary. Jason beamed, hugging her. Relax, babe. I'm handling the finances. You just save lives. Let me build our empire. He kissed the top of her head. Over her shoulder, his eyes met mine. He winked. He winked at me. As if we were co-conspirators in his genius financial maneuvering. As if I was the clueless old man who would be impressed by his jargon. I stared back at him, stone-faced. Empire, I repeated flatly. Exactly, Jason said, releasing her. Dad gets it. Rome wasn't built in a day, right? No, I said. And it fell because of corruption from within. Jason paused. Whoa, dark. Need more coffee, Dad. He walked away, whistling. Carla looked at me. She looked unsure. The gaslighting was working. It was a slow poison, making her doubt her own reality. I had a dilemma. A profound moral crisis. If I told her right now, Jason stole your money, he's cheating on you, here's the video, it would be a nuclear detonation. She would be traumatized. And without the legal ducks in a row, Jason might still maneuver his way into some of my assets or drag out the divorce to bleed her dry. But if I waited until Tuesday, I was letting her live in a lie for 3 more days. I decided to stick to the plan. Tuesday. The anniversary, it was poetic justice. It was the deadline Jason himself had set for his guarantor scheme. I spent the rest of the weekend preparing. I told Jason and Carla that as an anniversary gift, I wanted to cook them a special dinner on Tuesday night. Steak and lobster, I promised. And then we'll break in the home cinema. I finally fixed the projector. Really? Jason asked, his eyes lighting up. That thing has been busted for years.
I found the spare bulb. I lied. I thought we could watch your wedding video. Reminisce?
Carla smiled, touching her chest. Oh, Smith, that's so sweet. I haven't seen that video in ages. Jason looked slightly uncomfortable, but he recovered quickly.
Great idea, Dad. Very sentimental.
Sunday was quiet. Monday was tense. On Monday afternoon, while Jason was out meeting Maya Yasumid, I went into the basement. I hooked my laptop up to the projector. I checked the audio levels. I didn't load the wedding video. I opened the folder labeled Project Demolition. I used a simple video editing software to stitch the clips together. Clip 1 the lightning strike, conversation. Clip 29, Maya entering the house. Clip 3, the clueless old man comments. Clip 4, the infidelity in the guest room, edited for decency, but clear in context. Clip 5, the conversation about draining the savings account for the car. Clip 6, the plan to trick me into signing the guarantor form. I added timestamps. I enhanced the audio. I burned it onto a Blu-ray disc. I labeled the disc Jason and Carla Wedding Memories. I placed the disc in the player tray. I sat in the dark theater for a moment. This was cruel. I knew it was cruel. To show this to Carla in front of Jason, it was public execution. But Jason relied on privacy. He relied on the shadows. He relied on the fact that polite people don't make scenes. He thought he could rob his wife and con his father because we were too nice to call him out. I wasn't nice anymore. I was a structural engineer. And I was about to initiate a controlled demolition. Monday night, Jason came home late. Dad, he said, finding me in the living room. Can I ask a favor? Sure. For the anniversary dinner tomorrow, maybe we can skip the wedding video. It's kind of cringe, you know? Bad hair, bad speeches. He was nervous. He didn't want to be reminded of his vows while he was actively breaking them. Carla wants to see it, I said firmly. It's for her, right? Okay. Just thought, maybe a movie instead. We'll see, I said. He lingered. I also have some paperwork for a business loan. I need a character reference signature. Nothing major. Just saying, you know me? Bring it to dinner, I said. I'll look at it then. Thanks, Dad. You're the best. He went to bed. I sat there, the weight of the coming storm pressing down on me. Tomorrow. Tuesday arrived with a deceptive calm. The sun actually broke through the clouds, bathing the house in a warm, golden light that felt entirely inappropriate for the violence I was about to inflict. Carla traded shifts so she could be home by 4:00 p.m. She spent an hour getting ready. She wore a blue dress that she had worn on their honeymoon. She curled her hair. She looked beautiful, and she looked hopeful. She had bought Jason a watch, not a Rolex, but a nice Seiko that must have cost her a week's pay. Jason came home at 5:00 p.m. He brought flowers. Supermarket flowers. The price tag was still on the cellophane, $2.99. Happy anniversary. Babe, he announced, handing them to her with a flourish. Oh, Jason, Carla said, tearing up. She ignored the cheapness. She saw the gesture. She hugged him. I watched from the kitchen, sharpening my carving knife. The rhythmic shay of the steel against the stone was the only sound I made. Hey, Dad, Jason said, loosening his tie. Smells incredible in here. Prime rib, I said, and lobster tails. You went all out. 3 years is a milestone, I said. Leather is the traditional gift, but I went with surf and turf. We sat down to dinner at 6:30 p.m. I had set the table with Ellen's good china. I poured expensive wine. Not the Japanese whiskey that was gone. The conversation was excruciating. So, Jason, I said, cutting my steak, how is the consulting business going? Booming. Jason said, his mouth full. Lots of irons in the fire. Actually, that paperwork I mentioned. He reached under his chair and pulled out a manila envelope. Let's eat first, Carla said gently. Business.
Later. Right, sorry.
Jason smiled. He checked his phone under the table. I saw the glow on his lap. He was texting her. On his anniversary dinner. Who's blowing up your phone? I asked. Client. Jason said smoothly. Crisis management. I'm putting out fires. You're very dedicated, I observed.
I try.
Carla gave him the watch during dessert. Jason, I know things have been tight, she said, sliding the box across the table. But I wanted you to have this. To remind you that time is on our side. Jason opened it. He looked at the Seiko. I saw the disappointment flicker in his eyes. He was expecting something he could pawn or return for cash. But he masked it. Wow, he said.
Baby, this is classy. Thanks.
I love you, she said. Love you too. He didn't have a gift for her. My gift is the investment account. He stammered. It's growing. For our future. Carla's smile faltered, but she nodded.
Thank you.
I stood up. My legs felt heavy. Well, I said, I believe it's time for the entertainment. Shall we retire to the cinema? The wedding video, Jason muttered, downing the rest of his wine. Yay. We walked down to the basement. The room was cool and dark. I had set up the leather recliners. Sit in the middle. I told them. Best sound. Jason sat on the left, Carla on the right. I sat in the back row near the projector controls. Popcorn, I asked. I'm full, Jason said. He was tapping his foot. He wanted this to be over so he could go meet Maya. Okay, I said. Let's take a walk down memory lane. I picked up the remote. The room went black. The projector fan whirred to life. A beam of white light cutting through the darkness. The screen flickered. The title card appeared. Jason and Carla Memories. Ow, Carla whispered, leaning her head on Jason's shoulder. Then the video started. It wasn't the church. It wasn't the reception. It was the grainy, high-contrast night vision of my kitchen security camera. Timestamp last Thursday, 10:45 p.m. on screen. Jason entered the kitchen. He opened the side door. Maya walked in. In the dark room, Jason stiffened. What the... on screen, Jason's voice boomed through the surround sound speakers. He's clueless. The whole system is fried. Lightning strike. Carla sat up. Jason, what is this? Dad, turn it off, Jason said, his voice rising in panic. Dad! It's a joke. It's a prank video. Sit down, Jason, I said from the back of the room. My voice was calm, authoritative. It was the voice of a man who builds skyscrapers. On screen, Maya laughed. Where's the wife? Working. On screen, Jason said, she's a workaholic. It's sad, really. She doesn't get me. In the theater, Carla let out a sound that was half gasp, half sob. She pulled away from him as if he were burning hot. Carla, wait, Jason scrambled up. That's AI. Deepfake. Dad's messing with us. Deepfake. I asked from the dark. Is the bank account a deepfake too, Jason? The video cut to the basement scene. Maya, what about her?
Jason or Carla, she's clueless.
She thinks we're saving for a house. She has no idea I drained the joint savings account to pay for your car. The silence in the room was absolute, broken only by the damning audio from the speakers. Carla stood up. She was shaking. She looked at the screen, where her husband was laughing with another woman about stealing her money. Then she looked at the real Jason, who was standing there, pale, sweating, caught in 4K resolution. You bought her a car? Carla whispered. Her voice broke. With the house money? No, babe, listen. Jason reached for her. Don't touch me! She screamed. It was a primal scream, echoing off the soundproof walls. The video continued. The scene shifted to the guarantor form discussion. Jason. I'll slide the papers in front of him then. He won't read the fine print. I hit the stop button. The room plunged into silence, the screen going blue. I stood up and walked to the wall switch. I turned on the lights. The sudden brightness was blinding. Jason was backed against the screen, looking like a trapped rat. Carla was standing in the middle of the room, tears streaming down her face, her hands clenched into fists. Happy anniversary, Jason, I said. Jason looked at me, his eyes full of hate. You recorded us. You watched us. You sick old freak. Oh, I protected my home, I said, and I protected my family, or what's left of it. Carla turned to me. You knew. How long did you know? Since last week, I said. I needed proof, Carla. I needed you to see who he really is, because if I just told you, he would have lied his way out of it. Carla looked back at Jason. She looked at the man she had married. She looked at the watch she had just given him. She walked over to him. Carla, baby, please, Jason pleaded. It's not what it looks like. It's complicated. I was going to pay it back. She slapped him. It was a structural impact. A clean, hard strike across the face. Get out, she said. Babe, we live here. Jason said, holding his cheek. No, I said, stepping forward. I pulled a folded document from my pocket. You don't. I tossed the papers at his feet. That's an eviction notice, I said. Effective immediately. Robert filed it this morning, and he also filed a restraining order on Carla's behalf regarding the financial theft. You have 30 minutes to pack a bag and leave my property. If you're not gone, the police are already on speed dial. Jason looked at the papers. He looked at Carla. He looked at me. The arrogance was gone. The charm was gone. All that was left was the ruin. You can't do this, he whispered. I built this house, I said cold. I know exactly how to take out the trash. The silence following the slap was deafening. It was a vacuum, a void where the air had been sucked out of the room, leaving only the ringing in our ears. Jason stood there, his cheek rapidly turning a shade of angry crimson, his hand hovering near his face as if checking to see if his skin was still attached. You hit me, he said, his voice quiet, trembling with a mix of shock and rising fury. He looked at Carla, not with remorse, but with the indignation of a petulant child who had finally been disciplined. You actually hit me. I should do more than that, Carla whispered. Her hands were shaking so violently that she gripped the folds of her blue anniversary dress to steady them. You stole from me. You cheated on me. You brought her into our home. It's my home, too, Jason shouted, the facade finally shattering completely. He pointed a finger at me.
And he violated it. He filmed us. That's illegal.
I'll sue you. I'll sue both of you.
Actually, I said, my voice calm, cutting through his hysteria like a steel beam through soft earth. It's not illegal. This is my property. You are a guest. I have every right to secure the common areas of my home. And as for the bedroom footage, well, I think a judge would be more interested in the adultery than the privacy expectations of a non-paying tenant.
I'm not a tenant. I'm your son.
Jason spat the word like a curse. Then start acting like a man, I retorted. You have 25 minutes left. Jason looked around the room, his eyes darting from the screen, frozen on the image of his betrayal, to the exit. He realized, perhaps for the first time in his life, that there was no way to talk himself out of this. The evidence wasn't hearsay, it was high-definition reality. He scoffed, a wet, ugly sound. Fine, you want me gone. I'm gone. I don't need this place. I don't need you people. Maya has a condo. She has actual money. Maya drives a car paid for by your wife's nursing shifts, I reminded him. I wouldn't bank on her generosity once the cash flow dries up. Jason ignored me. He stormed past Carla, deliberately bumping her shoulder as he went. Move. Carla stumbled back, gasping. I stepped forward, my fists clenching, but she held up a hand. Let him go, she said, her voice hollow. Just let him go. We followed him upstairs. It was a grim procession. I stood in the doorway of their bedroom, the room that had been theirs, now just a crime scene of a marriage, while Jason threw clothes into a duffel bag. He was erratic, manic. He swept his toiletries off the dresser with his arm. He grabbed his sneakers. He reached for the laptop on the desk, Carla's laptop. Leave it, I said. Jason froze.
It has my files on it.
It's Carla's computer, I said. You claimed you were broke. You didn't buy it. Leave it. He sneered but dropped the laptop back onto the desk. He grabbed his phone charger. He grabbed the Seiko watch Carla had just given him, stuffing the box into his pocket. The greed was reflexive. Even in the middle of his life imploding, he wanted the asset. The keys, Carla said from the hallway. She hadn't entered the room. She couldn't bring herself to cross the threshold. What? Jason snapped, zipping the bag with aggressive force. The house keys, she said. And the car keys. The car is mine, Jason argued. It's in my name. The loan is in my name, Carla said, her voice gaining a sliver of strength. You have bad credit. Remember, I signed for it. I pay the insurance. Give me the keys. You can't leave me stranded. Jason laughed, a high-pitched, incredulous sound. It's raining, Carla. What you want me to walk? Calmea, I suggested. I'm sure she'd love to pick you up. Jason glared at me with pure venom. He dug into his pocket and threw the keychain on the floor. It skidded across the hardwood and hit my shoe. Happy, he sneered. Not even close, I said. He hoisted the bag onto his shoulder. He walked out of the room, pushing past me. He didn't look at Carla as he marched down the hallway. He didn't look at the photos on the wall. Photos of his graduation, his wedding, our family vacations. He looked straight ahead, his jaw set in a rigid line of defiance. We followed him to the front door. He opened it. The night air was wet and cold. The rain was coming down in sheets, blurring the streetlights. He turned back one last time. He looked at me, then at Carla. You'll regret this, he said. Both of you. When I make it big, don't come crawling back. You're dead to me. Goodbye, Jason, I said. He stepped out into the rain. I watched him walk down the driveway, hunching his shoulders against the downpour. He didn't have a car. He didn't have an umbrella. He walked to the end of the coal, D-sack, and stood under the street lamp, pulling out his phone, presumably to call the woman who had helped him dismantle his life. I closed the door. I locked the deadbolt. I engaged the security system. System armed. The electronic voice seemed to echo in the sudden silence of the house. I turned to Carla. She was standing in the middle of the foyer, staring at the door. She looked small. She looked like a building that had been imploded from the inside. The exterior walls still standing, but the internal structure turned to dust.
He's gone?
She whispered. He's gone, I confirmed. Then her legs gave out. I caught her before she hit the floor. I guided her to the steps of the staircase and sat beside her. She buried her face in her hands and began to sob, deep, wrenching sobs that shook her entire body. It was the sound of grief, of betrayal, of a future evaporating in an instant. I put my arm around her. I didn't say anything. There are no engineering principles for fixing a broken heart. You just have to weather the storm. We sat there for 20 minutes. Finally, her sobs subsided into hiccups. I feel so stupid, she choked out, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. He was stealing from me right under my nose. I worked double shifts. I missed my break times just to put money in that account, and he spent it on her. You aren't stupid, Carla, I said firmly. You are trusting. You are loyal. Those are virtues. Jason weaponized them against you. That is his failure, not yours. She looked at me, her eyes red and swollen. Why didn't you tell me sooner? When you first saw the video. I struggled with that, I admitted. If I had told you last week, without the financial proof, without the full picture, Jason would have spun a web. He would have convinced you it was a misunderstanding, or that I was a senile old man meddling in your business. I needed the concrete to cure. I needed you to see the undeniable truth so you could cut him loose cleanly. She nodded slowly. You were right. If you had just told me, I probably would have believed him. I wanted to believe him so bad. I know, I said. What do I do now? She asked, looking around the empty hallway. I have no savings. I have debt. I have nowhere to go. You stay here? I said immediately. This is your home for as long as you need it. You save your money. You rebuild. There is no rush. I can't impose. Carla, I interrupted. You are the daughter I never had. You are family. Jason made his choice. He left the family. You didn't. She leaned her head on my shoulder. Thank you, Smith. Now, I said, standing up and offering her a hand. Let's go eat that lobster. It's cold, but it's paid for. And we are not letting him ruin a good meal. She managed a weak, watery smile. Okay. We ate in the kitchen, standing at the island. We didn't talk much. We just ate, fueling ourselves for the battles that were yet to come. Because the eviction was just the beginning. The demolition was messy, but the cleanup, the legal war, the financial disentanglement, that was going to be the hard labor. The days following the eviction were quiet. The house felt different, lighter, somehow, as if a low-frequency hum of anxiety had been switched off. But it was also sad. We were two survivors in a lifeboat drifting in the wake of a shipwreck. Robert, my lawyer, was a shark in a three-piece suit. He descended on the situation with a terrifying efficiency. We filed for divorce on grounds of adultery and financial misconduct. Robert explained 2 weeks later, sitting at my dining table. Carla sat opposite him, looking pale but determined. We are freezing the assets, what little is left. We are also going after him for the misappropriation of the joint funds. Since he used marital assets to purchase a vehicle for a third party, we can legally claim an interest in that car. I don't want the car, Carla said. I just want my name off his debts. We'll get there. Robert assured her. I've also spoken to the bank. Given the fraudulent nature of the transfers, and the fact that he impersonated you online to increase withdrawal limits, there's a chance we can recover some of the funds through the fraud department. It's a long shot, but we're taking it. And Jason, I asked, has he responded? Robert smirked. He has a public defender. He applied for legal aid. Apparently, he's experiencing some liquidity issues. The karma I had hoped for arrived sooner than expected, and it was poetic. Jason had moved in with Maya, assuming that his investment opportunities and his charm would secure his place in her luxury condo. But Maya wasn't a partner. She was a parasite looking for a host. When the host turned out to be anemic, she detached. I heard the details through the grapevine, or rather through the security camera at my front gate. 3 weeks after the anniversary, the intercom buzzed at 9:00 p.m. I checked the monitor. It was Jason. He looked rough. He hadn't shaved. His clothes were rumpled. He was holding a plastic bag that looked like it contained his worldly possessions. I pressed the talk button. State your business. Dade! His voice crackled through the speaker. Dad, please. Let me in. It's raining.
It rains a lot in Seattle, Jason. You know that.
Maya kicked me out, he said, his voice breaking. She's crazy, Dad. She threw my stuff off the balcony. She said I was a deadbeat. Can you believe that? I can, actually. I have nowhere to go, he pleaded. My cards are declined. Robert froze everything. I'm hungry. I looked at the screen. I felt a tug of paternal instinct, the urge to open the gate, to feed him, to fix it. But then I looked at the kitchen table where Carla was studying for a certification exam, trying to rebuild the career he had nearly derailed. If I let him in, I would be betraying her. I would be compromising the structural integrity of the safe space I had promised her. You have a degree, Jason, I said into the mic. You have health. You have a brain. I suggest you use them. There is a shelter downtown on 3rd Avenue. They have soup. You can't do this, he screamed. I'm your son. My son died when he looked into a camera and laughed about robbing his wife, I said. Goodbye, Jason. I cut the feed. I watched him stand there for a minute, yelling at the camera, kicking the gate. Then, defeated, he turned and walked away into the dark. It was the hardest thing I have ever done. But sometimes, love requires a controlled burn to prevent the whole forest from catching fire. The next 6 months were a period of reconstruction. Carla was a warrior. She picked up extra shifts, but this time, the money went into her own account, an account I helped her set up with strict privacy protocols. She started therapy. She cried less. She laughed more. We became roommates of a sort. We cooked together. We watched movies, Zira comedies only. I taught her how to play chess. She taught me how to make a decent risotto. One Tuesday evening, Robert came over with the final decree. "It's done," he said, slapping a folder on the table. "Divorce finalized. The debt from the investments has been assigned solely to Jason." The judge was not amused by the video footage. "And the savings?" Carla asked. "Partial recovery," Robert said. "We got about 40% back. The rest, well, the car was repossessed in auction, but it didn't cover everything. But you are free, Carla, legally and financially free." Carla let out a long breath. She picked up the decree and held it like a diploma. "Thank you, Robert," she said. Then she turned to me.
And thank you, Smith.
I don't know where I'd be without you." "You'd be fine," I said. "You're made of steel, kid. I just provided the scaffolding." "I have some news, too," she said, biting her lip. "I found an apartment. It's small, just a studio, but it's near the hospital. I can afford it on my own." I felt a pang of sadness. I had gotten used to having life in the house. But I knew this was right. She needed to stand on her own foundation. "That's wonderful," I said. "When do you move?" "First of the month." "But can I still come over for Sunday dinner?" "I'd be offended if you didn't." I smiled. Carla moved out a week later. I helped her move. I gave her the purple sofa. I told her I hated to see it go, which was a lie, but she laughed. And that was worth it. Jason, I learned later, had left the state. He moved to Arizona, apparently trying to sell timeshares. He sent me an email once, asking for a small loan to get back on his feet. I didn't reply. I simply moved the email to the folder labeled Project Demolition and hit delete. The house is quiet again now. I sit in my Ames chair looking out at the rain. The security monitors are on. The green lights blink reassuringly. Living room clear. Kitchen clear. Hallway clear. The structure is sound. The cracks have been sealed. The bad load has been removed. I sip my coffee. It tastes better than it has in years. I picked up my phone and opened the camera app. I wasn't recording a crime this time. I was recording a message for Carla, wishing her luck on her first night in the new apartment. "Hey, kid," I said into the lens. "Just checking in. Remember to lock your deadbolt. And remember, the foundation is solid. You're going to be just fine." I hit send. "I am Smith. I am a retired structural engineer, and I finally have my house back. Morale lesson. This story was a classic case of structural failure caused by hidden rot. Jason's downfall wasn't just about cheating on his wife. It was about a profound sense of entitlement and arrogance. He believed he was smarter than everyone in the room, smarter than his hard-working wife, and smarter than his old father. His mistake was assuming that kindness equals blindness. He mistook my silence for ignorance and his wife's trust for stupidity. By disabling the security system or thinking he had, he revealed his true character. He didn't just break vows, he broke the fundamental social contract of a family mutual respect and safety. The justice here was severe but necessary. Jason lost everything, his wife, his home, his inheritance, and his reputation. Because he overplayed his hand, he gambled his stability on a fantasy and lost. Carla, conversely, learned the hard way that trust but verify is essential, even with those we love. The moral message, the lesson here is simple, but often forgotten. Character is what you do when you think no one is watching. Jason thought the cameras were off, so he showed us who he really was. In the digital age, privacy is rare, but integrity should be constant. If you have to hide your actions from the people you claim to love, you are already destroying your life frame by frame. Furthermore, never underestimate the people who support you. The clueless, parents, the workaholic, partners. These are the pillars holding up your sky. If you chip away at them with lies and theft, eventually the roof will come down on your head. Positive closing. Thank you for listening to this story. I hope it serves as a reminder to value the people in your life who offer you shelter and love. Be honest, be kind, and build your life on a foundation of truth. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe, and share your own experiences in the comments. Until next time, stay safe and keep your eyes open.